Good evening, shortcuts. This is the video. This is video one. I'm actually going to do two videos this week. I'm going to do an all jazz video, my first all jazz in quite a while, and then an all classic rock video. So there you go. Something to look forward to. As always, the price list will go out on Wednesday night. Any questions or anything that you want to know more about, ping me in the meantime. I posted out a bunch of things to a load of you this week, some more that I'm catching up with as well. So it's all wonderful here at Shortcuts, and I'm going to be doing a really special video later in the week. A really special video that I hopefully you guys that have subscribed will see. It's another anthology opening video. This one's got a quirk to it that I think is pretty fabulous. So here we go. I think it's 9 jazz records, mostly from the 50s and 60s. Quite a lot of hard bop, little bit of jazz fusion. Some of my favorites, but some that you might not know. But I was thinking, what am I going to start with? Well, you know what I'm going to start with? I'm going to start with this. Mr. Hands, Herbie Hancock. There's quite a few artists in both bundles tonight, actually, that are what I consider to be Shortcuts royalty. Herbie Hancock, we've got John Coltrane, Miles Davis, we've got Led Zeppelin, Elton John, Sade, Queen. There's a few. There's some definitely some royalty, and Herbie Hancock is definitely up there. A lot of you have bought Headhunters, and a few have bought Feet Don't Fail, and certainly more than a few have bought Maiden Voyage. But Mr. Hands is really, really interesting. I'm pretty sure it's 1980. It's later, a little bit later, of course, in past some of the Imperial Isle classics and things like that. But what I suggest you do is play the opening track, Spiraling Prisms. I'll do a playlist as always. It clearly he'd fallen in love with synthesizers and keyboards and various sounds in this period. But Mr. Hands is notable because there are no duds. There was a period of time when, honestly, Herbie Hancock couldn't release a record where at least once or twice I'd be like, get that the hell out of here. That's not working. But Mr. Hands is so melodic and so beautifully crafted. You cannot. What a great name for a piano player, Mr. Hands, and great sleeve. But anyway, I think it's wonderful. I think it's upper echelon Herbie. It's underappreciated Herbie. As is this next record. I think this next record is utterly fantastic. And I think it has become my favorite John Coltrane record. And it is this. John Coltrane Plays the Blues. Love the green, blue, early Atlantic label. Why do I love this so much? Well, first off, I think it's got the great... Well, John Coltrane is amazing at opening tracks. But this one, Blues for Elvin, is, I think, his best opening track. And of course, it's dedicated to Elvin Jones, the drummer on this set. There's the back sleeve. Great listening notes. I don't think it's Leonard Feather. It's someone else. It's hidden under the OB. But you got John Coltrane, McCoy Tyner, Steve Davis on bass, and Elvin Jones on drums. And you might recognize that lineup because it's the same. Is it the same? I think it is the same as Coltrane's My Favorite Things. But this has got my favorite opening track, opening salvo in Blues for Elvin. But I also love the final track, Mr. Knight, as well. And part of it is because McCoy Tyner can be busy and difficult and hard. But on this record, his piano playing is so tinkly winkly beautiful. I just love how melodic it is. And obviously John Coltrane can be incredibly muscular and incredibly demanding if he wants you, if he's in that. But this record is just sweet. Anyway, big fan. Love. Now, this one I'm not familiar with, but I liked a couple of the artists. Obviously, Donald Byrd, genius, but I'm a big fan of Duke Pearson, who also makes an appearance a little bit later in this list. But we get the two kind of headline acts here: Donald Byrd and Jackie McLean, on, of course, the famed Blue Note label. This has got a little bit of a Latin theme. It's quite upbeat. It's got the odd kind of that period where there be almost like a bossa nova feel to the kind of the underlying theme. But it's really beautiful, and yeah, I think there'll be someone who'll appreciate it more than me. Now, this is a record I own already, as do a lot of people. This is a very, 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 very popular record. But the Japanese pressing of this record is fabulous. It is the Sidewinder, Lee Morgan. Now, there's a club member, Lars. Lars, you know who you are. You turned me on to this record. I had no idea how good this was, and it was you, Lars, who found this, who kind of planted this in my mind. I've gone on to become a huge Joe Henderson fan right off the back of this. But, it's not too outrageous to say that this record rescued Blue Note. I mean, Blue Note was in trouble. I think it was it 62, maybe 63? Not trouble, but wasn't happening. They pressed 4,000 copies of the Sidewinder. The 10-minute title track, opening track, has become an absolute jazz canon. Of course, it started catching on, not just on jazz radio in the US, but on commercial radio too, and it became a Billboard hit. And off the back of that Billboard hit, it became what for a long time was Blue Note's biggest ever selling album. I've heard rumors that there's a Norah Jones record that's taken over, but I like to think the Sidewinder by Lee Morgan is still number one. Lee Morgan, of course, on Moanin' by Art Blakey, which is another Shortcuts royalty. Lee Morgan became a band leader, and he led 20 plus records for Blue Note. The Rump Roller, the next one after the Sidewinder, is another particular favourite. It's bloody hard to find, though. And the Sidewinder, this is the first time I've had it in years. In fact, if we go, let me just see. In fact, all four of those, it's the first time I've had them in Shortcuts. And this next record as well. This next one has got Duke Jordan on piano. But it's Here Comes Louis Smith. The debut album of the underappreciated trumpeter. And rather lovely it is too. Very sprightly. He's quite a busy trumpeter, but very melodic, very straight lines. It's just a quintessential hard bop, but not so common. And I think it's rather fun. Well worth a listen. Now we've got two doubles from two, two of the greatest jazz players that have ever been, and that's not an understatement when you see who they are in a second. Last week, or was it the week before, I had a Sonny Rollins record, and honestly, I could have given away 10 of them. I cannot believe how popular the Freedom Suite by Sonny Rollins was. Absolutely extraordinary. Well, here, during that video, I mentioned that Sonny Rollins, there are kind of, well, actually, there's maybe 5 Sonny Rollins records that if you have in your collection, you can consider yourself to be well versed. There's the Freedom Suite. There's these two, the Bridge and Live at the Village Vanguard, one of which was on Blue Note, the other was an RCA. But I also like Way Out West and Saxophone Colossus. But these two, Night of the Village Vanguard and the Bridge, also highlight what a special talent Sonny Rollins was. And I can tell you now, they are both in immaculate condition. As are these two to close off this little jazz suite. So one of these two, you know what? I still think it is my favourite jazz record ever. Mostly because it doesn't really sound like jazz. And I know a bunch of you have grabbed a copy of this over the last few years. Every time I see it, I pick it up and I pass it on. And normally at the price it costs me. Because this is one of these records I just want to hand to people and go, take this away and listen to it. Jack Johnson by Miles Davis. The soundtrack to the movie Jack Johnson, the legendary boxer. There's Jack Johnson. And there's Miles. This long, sprawling session that involved guitarists and drummers, and Herbie Hancock makes an appearance. Miles Davis, Steve Grossman, Herbie Hancock, the absolutely extraordinary John McLaughlin on guitar, and just the little-known Billy Cobham on drums. It is a monster. I mean, it's each side is effectively one song, but there are really a number of things that Rudy Van Gelder stitched together in the legendary way that he does, and it is like the love child of Led Zeppelin and I can't quite tease the right analogy out, other than to say that there are great swathes of this record where Miles Davis doesn't play, and it still sounds bloody magnificent. And that's because you got John McLaughlin and Billy Cobham and Steve Grossman and others hitting grooves that are really something else. And to finish off, there's another Miles Davis. Now this one is it's quite a different feel to Jack Johnson, but I guess that's why Miles Davis is just such a genius. This is the Sketches of Spain record that was arranged by Gil Evans. This is an album of sheer beauty, and so a fitting way to finish off this pure jazz list. As I said, we have some royalty. Miles, Sonny, Louis, Lee, Donald, John, and Herbie. There you go. The jazz list with pronouns, first names only. Anyway, I really hope that there's something there that you can explore, maybe something new that you haven't heard before, something to fall in love with. Thank you for watching as always. Please subscribe, share the Shortcuts love, and keep an eye out because there's a classic rock video imminent. Thank you all. Bye.